If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy. We live in a bureaucracy.
Hello, my name is Josh Hunking. I'm an attorney in Corvallis. So he's saying democracy is people vote for their elected leaders. Their elected leaders are the decision makers. That's ideal in the sense that you have your power center with your actual people, and that is kind of definitionally what democracy is. It's an interesting perspective. When I watch it in these circumstances, I see somebody who is operating under the authority of an elected representative who has just recently won an election. So then they're sitting in a position of, well, wait a minute, I should have this ability to do this because I'm in favor of the will of the people currently, as it currently exists. The issue with this statement is, while it's a correct statement of the understanding of what democracy is, it is incomplete. It's not a comprehensive answer, because while we do want to, within the structure of a democracy, have rule by the people, which means elected representatives, which means if you don't like the rules that these people are creating, you vote the bums out, you vote new bums in. There are other things that our framers took a look at in determining a bit of a balance. Some of that is stability. So like, for example, if you look at the difference in a term of a House of Representatives person being a 2-year recycling term versus a senator 6 years, the reason for the difference is that you want more stability within a chamber of your legislative body, in this case, the Senate. That stability provides value because on the other side of we want to be ruled by ourselves and our own will within democracy, is we also are potentially subject to the whims of ourselves. We humans collectively, Americans, Oregonians, are wrong. And we're wrong pretty regularly, and it's pretty provable across history. If you just look at your current perspective and compare that to the perspective that people had in 1922 versus 1705, the perspectives change on a lot of data points that exist. Our knowledge is expanded in part by, the sciences and the engineers who are in fact generating new knowledge that we can then use for our own benefit. Some of the knowledge generation is sort of testing things over a period of time and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Regularly, we take very hard stances, and if you take a hard stance with the government backing, meaning it has the ability to kill you and to put you in jail, or to take all of your stuff from you, it can be a pretty harsh reality to be subject to those whims. So as a guard against the whims flowing back and forth in sort of a whipsaw fashion, some stability is also preferable as opposed to simply a raw democracy. A decent example is, the will of the people is that we have Doge. It's currently February the 12th of 2025. 8 weeks ago, the will of the people was not that we have Doge. So the will of the people changes, and it changes quickly, which is jarring. It's disruptive and potentially problematic. So I appreciate his perspective. His perspective is not incorrect. I think he's correctly identifying some of the metrics, but I think it's an incomprehensive view of what we're actually trying to do in order to ensure that our peace, safety, life, liberty is safeguarded.
When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. That's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury, because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints.
His understanding of the mechanism of motivation of what drives the federal government to take action is complaint avoidance. That what you're trying to do is avoid somebody saying, hey, you're doing a bad job. I don't have enough information to determine whether or not that's a correct metric or not. However, it does conceptually make sense that if you don't have a motive of, say, customer service, then why would you do anything if you are an individual federal employee? Well, you're going to do it so that you don't get fired, which means you're going to keep your boss happy, which means potentially you just sort of drift into the background. When you apply that to something like Treasury, if that's your system of we kick out dollars, don't get complaints, you may have an incentive there. And then also conversely, a blind spot that exists. That blind spot would be payments that should not go out, but that nobody's complaining about, because nobody has an incentive to take action to be able to identify that payment and stop it from going out. It's an interesting intersection between incentives that would push like a private business forward versus an incentive that would push a government forward, because in capitalism, in a private business system like us here, one of our metrics is the customer service experience. So that is the experience of the customer subjectively from the perspective of the customer, meaning are we giving the person what they want? Are we providing value to this person's life? If not, why did they hire us? Why are we billing them any money whatsoever if we're not doing something to make their life better? That's how you survive and thrive in capitalism, is you do what the people want. You provide them the thing that they're looking for. You don't have that incentive when your function is not to generate dollars within the capitalist system, more dollars than you have going out. And instead, you collect dollars based on taxes. You've got a predetermined budget. This is the amount allocated to this particular agency over here. You got to stay within that budget within that time period. There's some incentives to spend your entire budget. That incentive structure does not create a likelihood that you are going to have a good customer service experience, because you're not prioritizing the customer service experience and you're not measured on the customer service experience. So when I look at like reviews for my business and see, that we're above 4 stars, and trying to identify those where we provided suboptimal experience and rectify that and see how we can do better on the next one, or fix this particular instance so that we provided that high quality customer service experience, because that's essential to our continued survival. And then I look at the star rating on the district attorney's office, i.e. the prosecutors in the government, or the court, and the court's got a 2.2 star review, and frankly they don't care, because nobody loses their job because they got a 2-star review in their experience with a courthouse. Complaint avoidance may be a more precise metric by which those people are determining are they or are they not effectively doing their jobs. If the only way that a police officer gets in trouble is if you complain to the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training, they do an investigation, determine the police officer did something wrong, decide they're going to get rid of that police officer. It may be that the only way that police officer has any incentive to do anything at all is to avoid complaints, which is an interesting way to do things. It's going to yield a certain result, because that's the way incentives intersect with individuals. So I hope that's helpful. Till next time. Bye.